Let's call this meeting to order.
What am I looking at here?
I think I'd be ready to roll here. Okay, this is the August 16th meeting of the Concord City Planning Board. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Chairman Woodfin.
Here.
Councilor Pierce.
Here.
Member Rosenberger.
Here.
Member Savage.
Here.
Member Santa Cruz.
Here.
Member Smithmeyer. Yes, here. Member Fox.
Here.
Okay, have a quorum. We'll open up the meeting. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the July 19th meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion? Submitted?
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? One. Jeff Santa Cruz. Okay, agenda overview. We've got item 11 on our agenda tonight. There'll be no public testimony on that.
Oh wait, that
here.
might be a mistake actually. I didn't update that. I put 11 and 12.
Dear, 11 and 12, which are 35 Reserve Place and Continental Paving, have both been postponed to the September 20th meeting. So there'll be no public testimony. If you're here for those, you can go home early. Okay, so it brings us to item 5 on our agenda, which is determination of completeness. Item 5 outlines one item on determination of completeness. Item 5A from Wilcox and Barton. On behalf of First Church Holdings LLC, requests a major site plan approval for the conversion of a church into 30 residential units and related site improvements, and a conditional use permit, CUP, to allow alternative parking at 177 North Main Street in the urban commercial district. Again, this is a determination of completeness. No public testimony will be held tonight. If someone would like to make a motion to find the application complete, set the public hearing for, what's our September 20th meeting, not a development of regional impact?
Correct.
That would be great. Someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Moves us to item 6. Quick as a wink. Item 6 is design review applications. Again, by consent, so we've got design review applications here, items 6A, 6B, and 6C. We take items by consent with recommendations from architectural design review. If anybody's here to speak in opposition of item 6A, 6B, or 6C, if you could make yourself known. If not, any member of the board wish to pull any of those items from the consent agenda?
So moved.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. That was to pull them, so we don't want to pull them. So if someone would, I'll let you do it this time, Suzanne. If someone would like to make a motion to approve the items 6A, 6B, and 6C under consent with architectural design review applications, I'll take that recommendation.
So moved.
Motion's been made. David?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Moves us to our public hearing section of the agenda. Let's read item 7A into the record if we could.
Revision Energy and Horizons Engineering Incorporated, on behalf of Breezeline, requests a conditional use permit for a ground-mounted solar array for on-site use at 264 to 268 Sheep Davis Road in the Gateway Performance and Open Space Residential Districts. I believe this was previously noticed as a development of regional impact last month, and we did determine it complete. So we recommend to open the public hearing.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Come on up. Sorry, I was looking around to see you. Didn't see you. If we could get a staff update, we'll have you guys sign in on the sheet there if you could. If we could get a quick staff update on this.
Yep, you'll notice in the agenda, we got the response back from the town of Pembroke. They just wanted us to take into consideration any impacts to wetlands, buffer to bluffs, which the project really does not impact. They also wanted us to analyze their stormwater report. The applicant did provide us their AOT application. In the supplemental, you'll find excerpts from their stormwater report from that, still to be reviewed by engineering. We recommend that be a condition of approval. We recommend the board take a look to see if they determine this, sorry, I lost my place, a view shed of significant value due to its proximity to the Saltcook River. We also recommend and feel that the National Heritage Bureau also kind of supported that we recommend the board have the applicant place some additional plantings in the buffer area. I think that's about it. The applicant's requesting a waiver to section 2710 to not revegetate with native seed mix and instead allow the site to regenerate naturally. Both NHB and staff are in support of that waiver.
Okay, and where in the comments is the note about the view
Under general comments, 1.4.
1.4? Okay. Welcome to the table. If you guys could state your names for the record?
Sure, Scott Bartholomew, Senior Director, Critical Facilities at Breezeline.
Corey Foster, Director of Operations for New England.
Drew McDermott, Project Engineer with Horizons Engineering.
Well, welcome to the table. If you guys could tell us a little bit about this project. First of all, I got a problem with my cable. No, kidding.
Hopefully not, since we're new in town.
I do have a problem with my cable, but it's not with you guys as a company, so that's a story for another day. Sorry, go ahead and tell us about this project if you could.
Sure, so we just entered into Concord probably about 18 months ago when we started the new building. I built a new building over there to service it. And we bought 2 parcels of land, and the intent is to build a 165 kW solar farm that would be enough power to actually power the building, because as part of our ESG goals, we want to get on renewable energy, obviously. So that's really the goal of the project. And we did meet, and we had a impromptu meeting with, is it the NHB? And they came out to the site and took a look at everything, and they liked, some of what we were doing and how we were gonna take care of the vegetation and make sure that we don't disturb any native species and things like that. So that's the general idea.
Okay. Questions? Council Pierce?
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming to Concord, and hope it works well for you. When you talk about not disturbing natural vegetation, does that mean it's maintained at all, or does it become a field?
Well, it certainly needs to be maintained so that it doesn't grow above the solar array.
Right.
But one of the things they were interested in was ensuring that that we didn't disturb existing native species, which they determined that we wouldn't, because there was already a lot of disturbance there, not necessarily by us, but just over the period of time. They thought there might have been with the whole river being behind us and stuff like that. So that's what they were referring to.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So how big, I'm looking at the plans and I can see the individual units. What's the square footage as far as in totality? What am I looking at for the size of this thing?
So our building is about 900 square feet, and I would say this is gonna be probably 2,500 square feet. Does that sound about right? 1,800?
No, for
The
all
land,
solar.
the land usage of
For
the solar.
all the solar panels. So I'm looking at what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7
7 arrays.
arrays.
And how much square footage of land that's gonna
Yeah.
take? Yeah. How big is that?
I think around 20,000.
20,000. In your, you guys did respond to comments, and you provided a solar coverage calculation, and you indicated 5,600.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
so
sounds.
that sounds about right, because so if you look at the top, that's our building, that's just under 900 square feet for,
Yeah.
yeah,
Scott, scroll the sheet to fill these gaps.
1.0,
Keep going.
up this way?
Did you previously?
Okay. Other questions from the board? Jeff?
So can you go to the landscape plan if you would for a minute?
Landscape plan, sure, let me
There was
find it.
some, I noticed along 106 there were some gaps. Is there still,
I'm sorry. Keep going.
I noticed along 106 there's some gaps in the landscaping, and I'm wondering if that's something you can kind of fill in those gaps, so from 106 you're not gonna really have a sight line of the arrays?
Oh, you mean to block it from view when you're driving?
Correct.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we had planned to put a buffer, just like we have a buffer in front of our building as well right now.
The only other thing I would mention and is that technically this constitutes a change in use, so you will have to go back to New Hampshire DOT for a change in your driveway permit.
Okay.
Because originally you just had the building, but now that you're adding all the arrays, it is considered a change in use. So it may just be a simple amendment letter, and you may not have to do much, but that is a DOT road, so they do have jurisdiction for permits as well as the cities.
Okay, we'll go check with them. I didn't know that.
And Alex, what was the the runoff, the stormwater runoff that they mentioned in the letter from Pembroke was just that the stormwater review be included and reviewed in the project with particular consideration given to the controlling the runoff from the panels. Was that addressed, or is that in the notes at all?
So the staff has not had an opportunity to review the stormwater report submitted with their AOT application. And then I think there could be an element of, I don't have great concern due to the flat landscape of that land and everything like that, but we haven't reviewed their stormwater report yet.
So you don't handle runoff, right? It just runs off the panel and drips onto the ground? It's not.
Correct.
It's not channeled away or anything?
No.
And there's no rock or anything underneath? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Can I add on to that?
Yes.
Sorry. As part of the AOT design, we do have a small, right now it's a 6-inch swale below the arrays. So the intent is to kind of grade it towards that. Most of the water will infiltrate. Excuse me. So we are meeting the pre-development. We're not increasing any of the runoff.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay. That does. Thank you. Okay. Other questions from the board? Any member of the audience have any questions or concerns about this application? No? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, so again, in our packets, we've got recommendations under 4.1. Staff recommends the board discuss and determine findings of fact. So we'll use the findings of fact, the information that they presented here for us tonight, as well as the information that's in your packet and the questions that were asked. We've got 4.2 is to grant the waiver to section 27.106 of the site plan regulations utilizing criteria of RSA 674-44 3E2, which states specific circumstances relative to the site plan and conditions of the land use in a site plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent
Good job.
of the regulations. Would someone like to make a motion to grant those waivers? Which waivers are we looking at? What do we got for waivers? Just 2710?
Correct.
6? Someone like to make a motion to grant that waiver as outlined?
So moved.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 4.3 is to grant conditional use permit approval in accordance with section 2894 of the zoning ordinance to allow for ground-mounted solar collection system at 268 Sheep Davis Road, subject to the following conditions, and those are outlined in precedent conditions 1 through 6 and subsequent conditions 1 and 2. Would someone like to make a motion to grant conditional use permit as outlined?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can we just add on a precedent that they'll work with staff to update the landscape plan to include
Right.
those additional
Yep,
plantings?
absolutely. We'll make that note as a precedent condition 7 to work with staff to their satisfaction on buffering the arrays from the driveway, from the roadway. Okay, would someone like to make a motion to grant that conditional use permit as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. You are all set. Thank you very much. Right? Good. Okay. 7B, Wilcox and Barton. Could we read that into the record?
Wilcox and Barton Incorporated, on behalf of Havenwood Heritage Heights, request major site plan approval for construction of 3 new residential buildings and related site improvements, along with a conditional use permit for disturbance of a bluff buffer at 149 East Side Drive in the medium density district. This was determined complete last month, and staff recommends to open the public hearing.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing. It has been determined complete. If you guys could sign in on the sheet there and we could get a staff update on this, that would be great.
This is phase 2 of the Havenwood Heritage Heights. It's going to be very similar to phase 1. I think that the applicant will be able to speak more to the overall phasing of the Havenwood site in its entirety. We don't have a lot to say. They're seeking a conditional use permit to impact the buffer bluff. Staff's in support of that conditional use permit. They're also requesting 2 waivers. One of them is to not install vertical granite curbing along a portion of their roadway. And they'll speak to it, but this is due because in a future phase, I believe it's phase 4, they're gonna have to come through that same location. We are in support of that waiver to omit the required curbing in that section. And then the applicant went through the ADR committee, and they got recommended for approval without providing any colored renderings for their site. That is a site plan regulations, so they're seeking a waiver from that, they already have ADR recommendation, and they provided detailed elevations.
Okay, if you guys could state your names for the record?
Good evening, my name is Erin Lambert with Wilcox and Barton.
Good evening, I'm Mike Palmieri. I'm the president and CEO at Havenwood Heritage Heights.
Great. Well, welcome to the table, and if you guys could tell us about this project. Aaron, can you refresh my memory on the waivers? We did in the other phase that we did, is it not the curbing, but is it the same waiver for the buffers that we did in the previous one?
We did have a conditional use permit during phase one for this.
Not a waiver, it was a
Yep.
conditional use permit,
Yeah,
yes.
they have a perimeter walkway
Yep.
that goes around the project and it hugs the buffer.
Yep.
So yes, we'll talk about that in more detail.
Yeah, okay, go ahead and tell us about the project if you could.
Perfect. Do you want to give them a little overview of Havenwood?
Yeah, quick overview about Havenwood Heritage Heights if you don't know about it. We've been in Concord since 1967. We take care of about 600 residents. We have 2 campuses, approximately 40 acres between the 2 campuses, 350 employees or so, accredited nationally, so we've been there for a long time. We've done a lot of these projects in my 20-year history, 26 years actually. I've been here many a night trying to get things approved. And our goal really is to continue to give our residents a great place to live, great quality of life. And a lot of the units on the Heritage Heights campus now are well beyond 30 years of age, and they really don't meet the requirements that our residents need today for space, ADA requirements, bathrooms, zero clearance entryways, all things that we've become very good at over the years to provide them.
Perfect, thank you, Mike. So just to orient everybody, if you're not familiar, this is Havenwood Heritage Heights. It's 35 acres located on East Side Drive in Concord. The north end redevelopment took place in around 2014, 2015, where they redeveloped the entire north end of the campus from the Barrows building, which is basically the center of campus north. And then in 2019, 2019, early 2020, we were before you for phase one of the south end. So basically, Havenwood is looking to carry that same redevelopment message and through the south end of the campus. So we wanted to walk you through the master plan. So the south end, they were not able to tackle in one large chunk. There's a lot of financing as well as resident management that goes into that. So Havenwood has done a lot of very thoughtful planning as to how they can tackle the south end of the campus. So they started with phase one, which like we said was completed in 2021, and those were the 3 buildings that are on the southernmost corner. And now we are proceeding with phase two. There's basically a road that runs through the campus, and that's gonna remain. But today, the buildings are designed around a central parking lot. So for example, the driveway is here, and there's a parking lot in between buildings 38, 39, and 40. And the same thing with these pods. And what we'd like to do is continue to provide a streetscape and continue sort of the neighborhood feel that we developed in the north end. And so phase two, this building right here is building 41 that has a parking lot. And we're gonna redevelop everything so they're fronting on these roads. I wanted to bring to your attention that we are planning to build a new road through the campus to eliminate those dead-end parking lots. So everyone's home will have a front door and a front porch and be connected to a perimeter walkway. So you're gonna see on my plans that we're starting to build the beginning of that road in phase two. And when we come back through in phase four, we'll build the next portion of the road when we develop that phase, and so on and so forth. So we wanted to give the board an idea of where we're going. It's very thoughtful and planned out. All right, so phase two. So there's 3 buildings that are part of phase two. They're buildings 41, 45, and 46. And like I said, they all have frontage on that main road. We are reducing the number of units from 17 down to 13. Building 41 will have 5 units. Buildings 45 and 46 will each have 4. So there's been a lot of detailed planning that's gone into each of these buildings in terms of providing zero clearance at each entrance, front and back, providing as much daylighting as possible. And so the detailed elevations really call out those features. But I'm gonna walk through what's really important on the site. So each building has a front porch. Each building has a garage and 1 parking space in front. So each unit has 2 dedicated parking spaces. And then in the rear of the building, each unit has either a patio or the ability to create a screen porch. But also, you'll see I've highlighted these. So the blue are the individual patios or screen porches. But in the center of each double building is an entrance for maintenance folks. So the units are specifically designed so that maintenance folks can enter a separate entrance and go directly to the basement. They don't need to walk through the resident units. And that's something that has been very well received by the residents of the phases that have already been completed. So you'll see we are extending a sidewalk from Eastside Drive into the community. There's no sidewalk here currently today. We're adding curbing. Oh, I'm sorry, Pete, we're extending curbing along the side of the road. As Alec alluded to, we are asking for a waiver to not put curbing on this portion right here. I apologize, Pete. This is the future phase 4, and we considered whether it would make sense to put the curbing in now or later. However, because we're going to be putting in a sidewalk on that side of the road as well and driveway cuts, it was determined that it would be more cost effective and just wiser for us to delay putting that curbing in, and staff has fortunately supported our request.
So curbing after the phases are complete?
Exactly, just on this section here.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
it'll be on the other side, but yes, the main road will have sidewalk on both sides. This new internal road here will have a sidewalk on the inside. Yep. So one of the comments that ADR raised was they were hoping that we would add some curvature to this rear sidewalk. And we talked about that as a team, but there's some reasons why it's better for us to keep that straight. Maintenance, number one, access to those maintenance facilities is just easier if they're bringing equipment to those if it's straight, and also wayfinding for the residents. This is a sidewalk that's really just for the residents of these buildings. It's not interconnected to the perimeter sidewalks. It's not directly connected to East Side Drive. And really, we don't want to introduce any quick turns for residents. We want them to have easy wayfinding to the back of their buildings. So we respectfully request that we keep that walkway straight. We are continuing the fence line. So as we did on the north end in the beginning of phase 1, they're going to put a fence, an ornamental black fence along the front. So again, there will be nobody walking from East Side Drive to the back of these residents. They will be directed to the main sidewalk that comes into the property. Similar amenities behind Building 41, although they will have direct access to that perimeter sidewalk that we were talking about. So there's along the buffer to the bluff, there is a beautiful walkway, and I'll show you some pictures in a moment. We're requesting a conditional use permit because Building 41 actually hugs really close to that buffer. We're pulling the building away, but we necessarily will need to impact the sidewalk a little bit during construction, and we're going to pull it away ever so slightly to give Unit A as much privacy as possible on that corner. At post-construction, we will be reducing the pavement within the buffer by about 95 square feet. We're proposing to put a pavilion in the back. It may not be built right away, but it is definitely part of our plans. It's part of our permitting. It's all been accounted for in our lot coverage calculations as well as our stormwater calculations. And this is the beginning of that spur road that we talked about. We're bringing utilities down it. We've planned for it in all aspects of the project. Stormwater, we are reducing our runoff from stormwater in the post condition. We're looking for every opportunity we can to reduce the amount of stormwater that's flowing out to the city system. Admittedly, we don't have a lot of room underground to build a large gallery. In phase 1, we were able to disconnect completely. The main road is still going to be connected, but we are building 2 infiltration galleries, flanking Building 41. This one has been upsized to account for runoff from this future road. And then each of the buildings is surrounded by a perimeter drip edge, so as much as possible, we're infiltrating all of that stormwater. You can see a drip edge will go around the pavilion, so there'll be no runoff from that heading towards the bluff. It will all be infiltrated on site. I wanted to give you a little bit of preview of what it's going to look like because we're really mirroring what we did in phase 1, both aesthetically with light fixtures, with landscaping. All of those are going to carry through into phase 2. So you can see that's a light pole. The street light poles are set at 14 feet. And at the front of each home, there is a light pole that's set at 8 feet. Each house does have a walkway, an accessible walkway that goes to the front door. So this is Building 42. This is right adjacent to phase 2. And this is the building on the corner. This was, Building 43. It's 5 units. And you get to see sort of the details that are incorporated, the color palette, the landscaping, all of this will be carried through into phase 2 and into future phases. And this is the end of building 43. This is a preview of, this is the perimeter path adjacent to phase 1. So this is the one that Rich, you were asking about. We requested a conditional use permit to rebuild this sidewalk. As you can see, it hugs the trees which are along the buffer, but we won't be removing any. This is the sidewalk that we are requesting the conditional use permit for in phase 2. There's a little bit of a bend here, and we're basically just straightening that out a little bit. But again, we will not be doing any tree clearing within the buffer. And that was a request of of the Conservation Commission, and we assured them that we are not planning on taking out any trees in the buffer, just sliding it over a little bit in the already disturbed space. This is the site lighting plan. So there are 4 new streetlights proposed. Like I said, they're at 14 feet, and the fixtures match the ones that are installed in phase 1. There are 13 light poles, 1 at the entrance to each unit. And then there are a number of lights around the buildings. There are small lights that you see in blue that are at each of the doors, sited on the porch or onto their patio. And then there are some other building lights. And they are consistent with the city's lighting requirements. There's a detailed landscaping plan. We can go through it, but certainly the idea is for it to replicate what was installed in the north end and in phase 1. We have the same landscaper and the same landscape architect on the team, so all of that continuity is incorporated into phase 2. So as we mentioned, we do have the conditional use permit for the sidewalk. While we are putting in new pavement, we are reducing the total pavement in the buffer by about 95 square feet. We request to defer the curbing along cottages 39 and 40. It would be put in during phase 4. And we request a waiver to not do a color rendering that showed landscaping. The LaValle Brenzinger did a wonderful job of providing colored renderings, and they do a wonderful job of depicting the building. They don't show the proposed landscaping. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that the project was granted 2 variances. The buildings are separated by 30 feet where 40 is prescribed. They are fully sprinklered. And lot coverage is allowed to be up to 65%. At the end of phase 2, we will only be at just under 48%, so we're still below that. But we have it planned out, and with the extent of walkways, the buildings are a little bigger. We count the stone drip edges as lot coverage. We did get relief for up to 65%. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. So looking downstream a little bit here to 4, 5, and 6, is the intent, I'm just trying to, in my mind's eye here on the I don't know, it's in the supplemental packet with the colored document that shows all the different phases, and put the little Lego pieces in there. Are you going to have less units?
Yes.
Bigger or?
Yes, they're all a little bit bigger
Yeah.
in order to accommodate a garage as well as the basement. And we do reduce the units slightly. Yep.
I love the concept as far as the front doors and the backs facing each other, so well done on that. I did have a question on the maintenance doors. So you're using those currently? And those are what, like wet wall and electrical, so all the wet plumbing is inside and
Yeah,
inside the wall?
everything is down there. All the electrical, the plumbing, everything is down there in the basement, and they have full access to that. And it's separated from a portion of the basement. Some of the residents have chose to finish their basements.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't go between the units, it goes down into the basement?
Correct,
Oh,
it's
okay.
in the basement, yeah. So there are separate doors in the back that go into the individual basements.
Okay, all right. Questions? Jeff?
I have a question by building A, that, I think you said A, the far right corner, the edge of your infiltration basin just goes inside the buffer? And I'm reading the buffer rules, and it's kind of unclear to me whether that's considered a structure and is allowed within the buffer of the bluff. And then there's a sewer manhole that lies within the buffer of the bluff.
I would call those structures, and we will pull those out.
Okay. The other thing is, the driveway that goes out to East Side Drive where it intersects your new roadway, so it's like 0 plus 25 left. It's unclear on the plan whether it has or is going to have an ADA ramp.
Can you repeat that again?
So if you're looking at, if you pull up the actual site plan, probably, because it has the stationing on it. So to the right of that, the right corner, so it'd be the southeast corner of that T intersection. Yep, right there.
Yep.
It's unclear on your plan whether that has or will have an ADA ramp.
That does have one today.
Okay, because it doesn't appear to line up with the actual crosswalk on the plan.
And that's one thing we've been talking to engineering about, because we were shifting the grading here to make sure that our catch basin wasn't at the bottom of the ramp on the, I'll call it the north side. So we will make sure that the crosswalk lines up. We may have to redo that ramp, but there is one there today, and the intention is there will be one.
Okay.
Yes.
Last thing, on your grading plan, the 2 ramps in front of building 41, next to the 2 driveways, it appears that the grade at the curb and the grade at the bottom of the ramp make it so the water actually drains toward the ramp rather than toward the road.
Can you tell me which one? I would love to check that.
So if you go to your grading plan, do you have your
I
grading
do.
plan by
Yep.
chance? So if you zoom in, it's like station 0 plus 25 right and negative 25 right. So basically the 2 inner ones next to the 2 driveways, if you look, the grading at the curb line is actually higher than the grading shown at the bottom of the ramp. So it looks like the ramp's pitched back toward the sidewalk rather than the other way. So just
Okay.
work with engineering just to make sure that's, I'd hate to see you get out there, build it, and have a puddle.
Yes, as would Cobhill. I will make sure that's corrected.
And that's it. Other than that, I love the buildings that are out there. I like what you've done. I think it cleans it up. It looks nicer. So I applaud you for continuing that plan.
Thank you.
I saw a note in the system on provide spot grades for the proposed pavilion site. Is that,
Yes, we'll do that.
where's
Yeah.
the pavilion?
Oh, sure. So it's the building right here behind Building 41, adjacent to the perimeter walkway.
Okay.
So it's a 20 by 20 pavilion. We'll make sure that there's spot grades around it, but it will have a drip edge all around it, so it will capture all of the runoff from the roof.
Okay. I see another hand. No? No? Any member of the audience have any questions or concerns about this application? No? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so lots of technical review comments. And I think most of them, I went through them quick here, but I think most of them have been either addressed or in the process, right?
Yep, the applicant did provide a resubmission between the DOC and now took care of a lot of them, and then anything on the report would still be yet to be resolved.
Okay. Okay. All right, so again, as mentioned there in the comments regarding ADR, so in your packet, way up in the beginning at 1.2, under the architectural design review comments, ADR recommended approval as submitted. The committee did recommend the applicant consider adjusting the sidewalk along East Side Drive to have some curvature to it. I think we heard testimony why that's a bad idea, and unless there's some discussion about that, I'm gonna say we strike that from the recommendation for ADR. Okay. All right, so let's move on to our recommendation, section 6, 6.1, determination of, the findings of fact. We'll use the findings of the information that was presented here tonight, the documents and content that you're in your packet as our finding of facts. We've got 6.2 is to grant architectural design review approval of the building and site plan as submitted, again noting that the recommendation to add some curvy structures to the sidewalk is not part of that. If someone would like to make a motion to grant architectural design review approval as submitted
So moved.
Second.
without that recommendation. Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 6.3 is to grant the following waiver to the site plan regulations, and that's outlined in section 1901, compliance with zoning regulations to not provide vertical granite curbing on the common private drive in front of cottages 39 and 40, where it would normally be required, and 16039, colored renderings, not to provide colored renderings normally required with each building elevation. Heather?
Since you're reading out the whole thing, you might want to add the last sentence noting that it will be provided in phase 4.
And I
so
was
it
just gonna
doesn't
say,
sound like
and
it.
just that the curbing will be provided during phase 4 of the project, and I imagine we'll get another one when they go to the phase 5. So would someone like to make a motion to grant those 2 waivers as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 6.4 is to grant a conditional use permit in accordance with section 2844D of the zoning ordinance to allow disturbance of buffer of a bluff for the demolition and construction of building 41 and associated surface facilities. Would someone that can make a motion to grant that conditional use permit as outlined?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Could we modify that just to make sure it's clear that the sewer manhole and the underground subsurface drainage system will be moved outside of the bluff buffer?
Absolutely. Yep. If someone like to, you want to add that in as a condition of, how do you do that with a conditional use permit? Can you
Just say subject to the conditions.
subject to conditions that Jeff just outlined. So with that, would you want to make a motion to approve that, Jeff?
I would.
And I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 6.5, grant major site plan approval for the proposed site redevelopment plan, demolition and reconstruction of 3 buildings at 149 East Side Drive, subject to the following conditions, and those are outlined in precedent conditions 1 through 6. Subsequent conditions 1 and 2. Any other additions or changes to those precedent and subsequent conditions? If not, we'll take a motion to grant major site plan approval as outlined.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. You're all set. Thank you very much. All right.
Improvements and a conditional use permit for construction of fewer parking spaces than is required at 103 Loudon Road in the medium-density residential district. This was determined complete at the last meeting. We recommend you open a public hearing.
Welcome you guys to the table. If you could sign in there and state your name, or not, don't do anything yet, just sign in. If we could get a staff update on this, that would be great. Oops, is that for me?
Did you already? Yeah, well, I'll address that later.
Okay.
Yeah, so actually I'll address that with staff update. We have no, so the issues that are sort of outstanding on this project is the traffic study. They had to resubmit, and their a review, an additional review is being done by the third-party consultant. We added a condition to the approval that, subject to no major issues arising out of that, we are still recommending approval tonight. The water study is also being done by Wright Pierce. You know, there's notes on the report about the sewer issues that we're having in the Heights and the CIP that is meant to address that. Just want the applicant to know that sewer permits are sort of first come, first serve. They may get approval, but this is an ongoing outstanding issue that they should be aware of. We've let them know that. They're requesting a waiver in the conditional use permit. We are in support of all those things. The condominium plat, there was a bit of a challenge with just communicating clearly what was going on there. So we did remove, this is what I passed out to you, we removed the approval for the condo plat from tonight, and I talked to the applicant about coming back next month for the major subdivision approval for the condominium plat. So what you have is the revised recommendations without the pieces for the condo plat in there.
Okay. So in your report, section 7.1 through 7.5 has been replaced with the paper version that's in front of you. Welcome to the table. If you guys could state your names for the record.
Yep. Hi, I'm Morgan Dunson. I'm the civil engineer with Nobis Group.
I'm Mark Palat with Dakota Partners.
Bob Duval, TF Moran, traffic engineer.
Great. Welcome to the table. Tell us a little bit about this project.
Thank you for having us. So our site is located at 103 Old Loudon Road. Currently, this site has three existing buildings. Oh my gosh. There is a small residential house, a barn, which also has a small apartment to it, an in-law apartment is what they call it, and another barn to the east. Our site has a brook that runs straight through the middle, down this way, and goes out under a culvert through Old Loudon Road. The entire site is kind of this awkward shaped little thing with a little cutout right here. We are also bounded on the west with another wetland area that has a 50-foot setback. And the brook that runs straight through our site has a 75-foot setback. If I go back to here. So we are proposing multi-family dwellings. This will be a phased project. The first phase will be building A, which is this L-shaped building, and building B, which is the clubhouse. Phase 2 will be building C and building D, which are both 30-unit buildings. The 3 existing buildings near the street are going to remain as is. They are historic, and we are proposing to do land condo units for these. So we have an existing proposed driveway going up to our site, circling around, and going back to Old Loudon Road. We will be removing one of the existing driveways to the houses on the east side to provide separation between the driveways. We are...
Also, just want to mention that in the first phase is 38 units. Those will be affordable units with 10% of them, with 10 of them being market rate. The balance will be affordable. In the second phase, the 60 units, those are all affordable units, affordable housing units within that area. This project's somewhat similar to the project that we were here back in 2021 for Rail Yard off of Langdon Avenue, which is under construction now and is planned to be, we're in the process of leasing it up now. So we should have occupants in that one probably in end of September, first part of October. So that's similar to that type of project. Within this site here, one of the other things we looked at was on the east side, there's a large sliver of land that is has steep slopes and is fairly wooded in that area over there. That part right there, I look at having that into a conservation easement, so it can't be touched in the future, just to set it aside. We have no need for it, and I really don't want to create any more development in that location. As well as I spoke with the neighbors there, as I mentioned to them, that should be turned into a conservation easement. Sorry.
That's okay. Thanks, Mark. So we are asking for a waiver to section 22.072 from the site plan regulations to allow 3 feet of separation to stormwater where 4 is required. I'll get into that when I go over the stormwater design. We are also asking for a conditional use permit to section 28.711B for construction of fewer parking spaces. The requirement for multifamily dwelling units is 2 spaces per unit, and we are currently showing 1.5 spaces per unit with the ability to build the additional 49 spaces, which are these areas right here. There's a little parking lot right here, and then parking along the drive aisles. We are also asking to pay a fee in lieu of constructing a sidewalk along the frontage per section 21.02. It would be ideal to have sidewalks connect to the main sidewalk in Loudon Road, but there is a significant brook that runs through our site and culverts that cross the Old Loudon Road, which create an obstacle to create a sidewalk, and we don't know what side would be the best side to make a sidewalk for the future. I also want to point out that we went to the zoning board and we received 2 variances. The first one was Article 28.21.4J to allow for multifamily dwelling units in this district. And the second one was Article 28.4.5 to increase the density of 21.07 units per acres, where 12 units per acre is allowed. And I will briefly go over the site plan more in depth. So like I said, we have 3 buildings, 38 30 and 30 with a clubhouse. We have a playground area next to the clubhouse. We have associated parking spaces all along. Dumpsters are over by building C and D. We have sidewalks that connect all of these spaces to the clubhouse and all along the driveway. This is our turning motion plan. This just shows the Concord fire truck turns that go in and out of our site. For grading, we are proposing 2 subsurface galleries. These will be disconnected from each other. So phase 1 will have its own subsurface gallery, which is the small one over here. So all the water sheet flowing in phase 1 will be directed to that stormwater gallery, and then overflow will be discharged out to the wetlands. We are not increasing peak flows in post conditions, so that's important. And for phase 2, we are also proposing another subsurface gallery. We're asking for a waiver for the 3 feet separation because this site has a significant cut to it. It's on a very large hill, and the test pits that we originally got only went so far with the excavator, so they only went like 7 feet down, and our galleries are proposed deeper, so we will be going back and getting confirmatory test pits as soon as possible. And if separation can't be made, we will be redesigning the systems as a filtration gallery with a sand filter media layer and a liner. For future grades, for the additional 49 parking spaces with our conditional use permit, these are designed to be porous asphalt, and we will be proposing multiple retaining walls along here. For the utilities, we are providing connections to city sewer, water. We're connecting to electric and gas, and we'll have propane tanks for gas. All the condos will have separate connections for sewer and water. And due to there is no existing sewer within Old Loudon Road, so we are proposing to do a force main to go from our site to the existing sewer manhole within Old Loudon Road. And this is due to the fact that there are multiple culvert crossings in the road. There's 3. There's an 18, 12, and 30-inch culvert crossings, which prevent us from doing gravity sewer. Then I'll go to the landscape plan. And here is the landscape plan. We are proposing large shade trees all around the perimeter of the parking lot, inside the landscaped areas. And we are also providing a tree barrier screening between the existing houses to remain and the proposed development. And I think that's it. Here's a better image of the phasing plan that's in color. So the purple is phase 1, green is phase 2, and the yellow is phase 1A, which will happen within phase 1, and that is the removal of that existing driveway to the east and connecting those 2 buildings to sewer and water. And there was also a comment made about views from I-93, if that was going to be an issue, and here's a graphical depiction of the road. I don't know if I can zoom in, there we go. So I-93 is up at approximately elevation 404. This was using GIS information. And there's a significant tree buffer between I-93 and our proposed development. There's approximately 160 feet of tree line that is going to remain. And these trees, as shown in the photo below, range from 20 to 40 feet throughout. It's a very densely forested area. And then this shows our proposed building C, which is the building, this building right here. So there'll be a nice buffer, and these people will have really nice apartments looking out at the woods, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's my spiel.
Great, thank you for your testimony. Yes.
You said 93, do you mean 393?
393,
Sorry,
yes.
393, yeah.
See you from 93.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you see the 93, I'm looking at the wrong map.
Look at the wrong map.
And I had one
Yes.
follow-up for staff. The connection to city sewer, is this involved with the capacity issue up there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it's adding to the capacity issue up there,
Right.
but they're saying that they're gonna have to pump because they
Right.
can't do it with gravity.
Right.
We
With
got a
the,
bigger issue.
Those are two
capacity.
separate issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two separate ones. I wish it was gravity, but unfortunately, we have to go with a force main.
Yep. Hit it, Jeff.
So on your turning movement plan, I'd like to see you have a fire truck making a left into the site and a right out of the site, because the station on Loudon Road, my guess is they're gonna come in at the other end of Old Loudon Road rather than having to go through all the different signals to get down here. You only show the left in, the right in and the left out. So if you could also show the other side, because it may affect that other radius on the other side.
Okay.
Okay.
I do have a couple of questions. There is two sewer structures, or there's a sewer manhole, and you show two sewer lines that connect to the existing buildings. Does that need some sort of easement, or is that covered in the condo docs, if that sewer manhole's on one property, but it's connecting sewer lines to the other property, so you have
Oh, good question.
interconnection in
I'm
between?
talking about,
I did put a comment in there about
You did,
that.
okay, I might have missed that.
Yeah, those separate buildings should have separate connections to the sewer main in the street.
The separate buildings have connections to sewer manhole
6, or, no, sorry,
5,
5.
which is the pump station.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that, am I
But they're
missing something that
crossing-
they're not
They're
separate?
crossing on private property.
Oh,
is
yeah,
what
so
I'm
they
saying.
would have
Yeah,
easements.
there's cross easements for the
Yeah.
utilities.
I think that's what I'm asking.
Okay, yeah.
That is correct.
Which is probably where you're going too,
Yeah,
is that it's.
that's right.
But you're absolutely correct, there should
Yeah.
be an easement there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. What is the profile of the driveway coming off the road and going up? Because I was having a hard time from the grading plan trying to figure out whether you're going straight up from the road, dipping down from the road, then going up. Because your first set of manhole, catch basins is 100 and some odd feet up the road. Are they at a low point?
So we have, the road goes up all the way.
So
Is that what you're asking? There's
Yeah, so I'm
two
trying to
catch basins down
understand. So
here
you-
and two right here.
Right, so you have the water for that last 100 feet that's basically sheet flowing into the Old Loudon Road.
Yep, and that'll just sheet flow down.
It'll sheet flow all the way to the road, or is it there a ditch so it stays on the side of it? Because if you're saying it goes all the way up right now, that water's gonna go right out into that road. It's on a hill.
It should be a ditch.
Okay.
I'll make sure it's a ditch.
The last thing is, you say that, I know, and staff supports the whole non-sidewalk issue, but did you show that it physically can't be built? Or are you just saying because of the culvert, it makes it difficult? Because I went out there and I'm looking at, on that same side of the road, with some work, it is possible to put a sidewalk in. I know we've really been pushing for the sidewalks and other developments for the last year and a half. And so I'm just wondering, was something provided to prove it can't be done, or it is extremely expensive, or what's?
No, I don't think it cannot be done. I think it can be done in some fashion. There's certain areas that had pinch points that really made it difficult. We had our meeting with the staff of all the departments, and one of the questions was building a sidewalk to nowhere. Because you get to Loudon Road, there's no sidewalks down there. So you're going down to some place where there's no sidewalks, and not sure if they're gonna have sidewalks and when they're gonna have sidewalks. So you have a portion from our door down to Loudon Road that has one, that really has one house off of that can feed to it, other than us. The rest will be within the road areas.
So while I hear what you're saying, from when you turn the corner to Loudon Road would be the gap, but theoretically, there could be a crosswalk across Loudon Road at that intersection, because there is a crosswalk on the other side of Loudon Road.
There's a sidewalk on the other side.
Sidewalk, maybe.
Correct.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, yes, there'd be a little gap the city would have to fill in from the corner of Old Loudon Road to the intersection of Loudon Road. But if the city was to fill that piece and put a crosswalk, we do have a sidewalk on the other side of Loudon Road that then connects all the way down. So while it sounds like it's to nowhere, there is,
So our concern was actually a little bit broader. You know, the sidewalk master plan recommends sidewalks all along Old Loudon Road. The other development, which we're gonna talk about next, they are immediately adjacent to existing sidewalks, and they are gonna cross the road with a crosswalk in a way that makes sense and construct it on the opposite side of the street. We have not done like a feasibility of all of Old Loudon Road. There's slopes in some locations, there's on the 33 Old Loudon Road, there's the pond there. So there's all kinds of technical issues with, feasibility issues with which side of the road should it be on. So we weren't sure by the time you get to their property, at the very end of the road, which side of the road is the sidewalk gonna be on? So we thought that it was probably a better investment, rather than just putting the sidewalk, noting that there is no sidewalk on Loudon Road, that there's a culvert that would need to be provided on both the north and the south side of Old Loudon Road. You know, we thought it made sense in this situation, because it's quite far from where any existing sidewalk would be to the west. And as I mentioned, you know, we're gonna be looking at it moving forward in the future, so that we will be able to make better recommendations, but we didn't necessarily feel comfortable telling them to build it on their property when we didn't know if that would really be the side of the road, ultimately, that the sidewalk should be provided on for the entire length.
okay, because I have a comment on the other one, that's where it's coming from, because all the vacant land that would be the size you put is all on that side, their side of the road. Everywhere else, there's a fence, a hill, it goes down into commercial development. So
Yep.
any residential that goes in along that side, we don't want them to have to keep crossing the street to go to a sidewalk on the east side of Old Loudon Road. So I would say we should look at it being on that side of the road the whole way through.
It seems that there are more feasibility issues on the north side of the road. We thought, you know, looking at it without any depth, you know, it potentially could cross back over at like Portsmouth Street or something like that. I hear what you're saying. We did talk about it quite a bit, and we are gonna pursue looking at where it should be. In this situation, we felt comfortable on the one side, having it be provided and accepting the fee
So
from
how
them.
is the in lieu fee developed? Do they provide you an estimate of what it would cost to build it?
Yes.
Okay.
And then engineering reviews the fee.
Okay, because we've been pushing this for a lot of other developments, and I just want to make sure that we're being
Consistent.
consistent to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
Okay.
In all the other developments, we also felt it was feasible to provide a
No,
sidewalk.
I understand. I
In
know
this
there's a
case,
couple
looking
we
at-
didn't, no, I know
Looking at
there's.
the culverts on
On
both
Old
sides,
Pembroke
really.
Road, there was a couple we didn't because they were out in the middle of
Davis,
nowhere.
yeah.
and, You know, and, you're right, Chief Davis Road with the facility,
Yeah.
thank you. I just, this one didn't seem like it was that far from Loudon Road, so there was just a small piece, so, okay, that's fine. Asked and answered, thank you.
Landscape?
Just a little.
All right, hit it.
I noticed the planting details are not the city's, and the city's details show the current best management practices. And these details have burlap and wire still attached to the root balls, and that's no longer recommended. And then the only other thing that I would recommend is that in the notes that the stakes, the planting stakes, be removed after the first full season. Because I find that in the city of Concord, people leave the stakes up forever.
They do,
Yeah.
I agree.
I just have one, I have a question. Is the gas line on Old Loudon Road a high-pressure line? Because you're showing a gas line on there, but you're proposing propane for the entire facility, so I'm just kind of confused why you've got gas right there, you're not connecting.
Because truthfully, we've met, similar to our other project at Rail Yard, which is twice the size of this project. We've met with a gas company to bring gas into that project, which is there. And they recommended us go with propane because the amount that we're using is so little to the value that you're gonna have to spend to put in the gas line to come there. Because our gas service is just, all it's doing is a hot water heater, a central hot water heater. It's not doing a lot more. It doesn't fire up boilers and all those things. It's just hot water. So even the gas company is recommending us to go with propane because it's just not cost effective at the end of the day. It's extremely expensive to put all that gas line in.
Interesting.
So that kind of leads to my next question. I think on the other development on the other end of Old Loudon Road, there was a comment, I think it was from staff, about considering renewable energy. Has this site given any thought to renewable energy?
On a nice steep grade on the east side. No, kidding.
I'm just, I mean, we got a site
Yeah,
that's a
no,
similar
it's-
use right down the street, and I
Yeah.
believe there was a comment about trying to consider it, because it is in our site plan regulations to
Yeah.
try and consider
Yeah.
renewable energy when possible.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
here we are, 2,000 feet up the road, you know, we should be talking about that as well.
Were you thinking like on the roofs or
I don't know.
whatever? Just
There are a
the-
lot of different
It's-
options. There's geothermal, there's solar, there's this or that.
We've looked at geothermal on a lot of our projects. It's just not cost effective at the end of the day. When you're doing an affordable housing type project through tax credits, it makes it extremely difficult. The solar is fairly similar to that because of the amount of cost that goes into the structure itself. Where we look at doing stuff that is energy efficient is the building itself. Like in Rail Yard, we have some of those that are passive house, very, very energy efficient buildings. They're tight, extremely tight envelopes. So your energy costs are reduced tremendously. So our focus has been more onto the actual structures because a lot of the codes from a building standpoint are going that way, more on the Energy Star, passive house, other type of programs, LEED certifications, because sometimes it gets a little too costly. In the case of this location, one of the things, with all the trees around it, because it is a fairly thick wooded site, and we're put into a very tight area because of the 75-foot shoreline buffer and the 50-foot wetland buffer. So we had a minimal area that we could clear cut or create more lawn area. So the fear is that, some of those trees that are remaining there, which we want to keep, we're just going to block whatever sun that's going to come in there. On that steep slope area, that one right there is on the east side. It's facing west. So it's really, I don't want to go in there and start clearing cut a piece of land just because it's a steep slope, and it would be a great place to put an array of solar panels along. But it just, I think it's productive in that respect.
Okay, good points. Lighting plan? Do we have a lighting plan?
We do.
Okay. I saw a note in here on lighting heights.
Yeah,
poles
the
and
heights
things
of
like
it,
that.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Any member of the audience? Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you for providing that elevation with the vegetation. I find that very helpful because I read what you were saying and I was like, it's just really hard to visualize, but I think that's really helpful to see that there really is not going to be an impact. So thank you for providing that.
Great. Any member of the audience have any questions or concerns about this application? Yeah, come on up, sir. You guys can step back. Thanks.
Did you all sign in?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll leave it there.
Well, my name is Carl Sargent. I live on the corner of Portia Street and Old Loudon Road. And tonight, there's both ends of Old Loudon Road are up, and both have very sharp, dangerous corners. And that's got to be considered in anything. And traffic is picking up on Old Loudon Road going on to Portsmouth Street. It's picking up significantly in the last couple of years, and it's getting worse and worse. I think the other project, they're talking about sidewalks on the south side of Old Loudon Road, and that would help, at least with all the people. There's a tremendous number of people that jog, walk, ride bicycles, children, and Portsmouth Street and that Old Loudon Road section is very heavily used by walkers. Some of them are walking to the Concord Trail system. Some others walk, only on through and jog, and there's mothers with baby carriages, and sometimes, boy, it is hairy in there, and that. So I think you need to take very careful consideration of how they develop that. I'm trying to from here, I couldn't see too well where they're bringing their drive into this, but if it's near that corner, that's another very dangerous. The other developer, which I brought up the last time, the other end was dangerous, and they moved the entrance and exit quite substantially, which will help that. And that's probably one of my main concerns.
Okay.
Do I
Thank you
need to
very much.
sign this?
Yes, please, if you could, Mr. Sargent. Thank you for your testimony. Any other member of the audience have any questions or concerns? Yes, come on up. Hang on just a sec. If you could state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Eric Gallagher, representative for Concord Ward 6 in the State House. Yeah, I'm here to support the additional housing. Yeah, we have a housing crisis in this state, so yeah, I think anything to help projects like this go ahead would be helpful. I am slightly concerned about the waiver for skipping out on a sidewalk, though. Sidewalks are something that I think in general this city could do a better job about providing. So yeah, I would just hope that the sidewalk could get built with this development as well. And that's all.
Great. Thank you very much for your testimony. Any other member of the audience have any questions or concerns? No? Well, close the public hearing. Thank you very much. Members of the board, questions, comments, concerns? Jeff, did you read the 547-page traffic study? I gotta know.
I glanced at the summary.
Okay, I glanced at the summary and I said, if anybody's gonna read it, Jeff's gonna read it. So, for the record, I looked at it. So thank you very much.
How much of it did you understand?
I didn't understand a lot of it, but I did look at it, so.
But VHB also reviewed this one. Some of the other ones, we've gotten
I
ahead of their
gotcha.
review.
But again, you want the data. If we need the data, then the data's there. We've had it before where there's just nothing for backup, so I appreciate the data.
Yeah, and I do, and I noticed VHB, one of the things they did request was sight lines, which
Yeah.
was a little bit of a concern of mine, because there is a dip in the road just west of the site that it's gonna be close.
Yeah.
In terms of,
And there was no sightline concerns with Mr. Sargent's question regarding the corner, and I know you come off that corner off of
well, that's
off of
what, I
Loudon
mean, it
Road,
shouldn't be,
and you
because
turn.
you're talking stopping site,
Yeah,
and you're talking intersection site.
Yeah.
There's two different types you're talking. The stopping site's along the road, so as you come around that corner, if you can see their driveway, even though it's around the corner, the distance is measured along the roadway.
Yeah.
Where the intersection is the direct line of sight between the two drivers. So
Okay.
given the speeds, VHB will take a look at that when it's submitted and make a recommendation.
okay. And I saw the VHB supplement in there, and there was a couple of things at the end in their conclusion that didn't really sound like they were endorsing it, but it didn't say that they had problems with it.
Yeah, they were looking for more information to be backup information, I think, to be included, so they could take another look at it. And
Okay.
like I said, the sight lines, I know was certainly one they
Okay.
asked for.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the board? No? Staff? No? Okay, so again, using the revised paper copy of your recommendations, using determination of findings of fact, we'll use all the information that we received tonight verbally, as well as the packet of information that you got to review. 7.2 is to grant the waiver to section 2207 2, the site plan regulations, stormwater design standards. Would someone like to make a motion to grant that waiver as outlined in 7.2?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Grant a conditional use permit in accordance with section 28711B, construction of fewer parking spaces of the zoning ordinance to construct fewer parking spaces than are required. Would someone like to make a motion to grant that conditional use permit of 7.3 as outlined?
So moved.
Motion has been made. I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Grant architectural design approval for the architecture and the site layout with the condition that false windows be provided in areas or a blank wall is proposed adjacent to the utility room. We didn't mention that, and I'm sorry, I had a note to mention that and I forgot. You good with that? Okay, no problem with that. Would someone like to make a motion to grant architectural design review approval as outlined?
So, second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 7.5 is to grant major site plan approval for the proposed multi-family development at 103 Loudon Road, subject to the following precedent and subsequent conditions noted below, and those are outlined in precedent conditions 1 through 7, 9, and subsequent conditions 1, 2, and 3. I will note again, as we discussed the sidewalks, in lieu of, payment in lieu of for the sidewalks, I'm sensitive to the fact that we want sidewalks everywhere, but I'm also sensitive to the fact that the city planner offered for information regarding doing it right and doing it once and not having to put it in where we've got to live with it.
Just to follow up on that?
Yep.
Should that be a waiver then, to provide sidewalk?
No, it's not a waiver.
It's just
They-
in lieu of?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Payment in lieu of. Okay, so any questions or comments on that? Would someone like to make a motion to grant that major site plan approval as outlined?
So, second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. You are all set. Good luck. Thank you very much. Okay. What's the chance we get anything that needs me that I could not bounce out on?
You should probably be here for almost everything that's left on
Okay.
for other business.
So I'll hop out.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Okay, I need to recuse myself for item 7D. Counselor Pierce is going to take the reins and shepherd this next one through the process. I'll be back. I'll be watching you on YouTube, so
If I get it
Smile.
wrong, call in.
smile.
Did you give him your notes?
No, I didn't.
See what-
Yeah, it's just open the public hearing, close the public hearings.
Yeah. Okay, item 7D, we'll open the public hearing. Here's staff reports.
Would you like me to read it into the record?
Please.
Keach Nordstrom, on behalf of James Palmisano, requests major site plan approval for construction of a new 144-unit age-restricted residential development consisting of 3 new 3-story multifamily buildings, a clubhouse, and related site improvements, and a conditional use permit for disturbance of a wetland buffer at 33 Old Loudon Road in the medium-density residential district. The public hearing was opened last month, continued to tonight, where will be seeking their approval this evening.
All right. Is that the extent of the report from staff, or?
I can go through the staff report.
Please.
You'll notice we added, similar to the previous application, a sewer note indicating the capacity issues and that it is not a guarantee to receive a sewer connection permit based on capacities and flows. ADR is recommending approval with the condition that lighting be provided by the solid waste receptacles, pickleball court, and the pool areas. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for the impacts of the wetland buffers. As you may recall, the Conservation Commission had requested that the stone riprap be extended to the base of the slopes. The applicant has since revised their plans. We've been able to revise our reports, and 3 waiver requests have come up as a result. The first being to allow 3 feet of separation, where our regulations require 4 from the groundwater to the bottom of the infiltration system. Staff's in support of that waiver. And then 2 others came about, which the applicant has since requested, just didn't make its way to the report, and that was to not extend the sanitary sewer connection to the middle of their frontage on their property. Staff is in support of that waiver request, as the feasibility to continue a sewer main on that section of Loudon Road is not conducive. We run out of elevation. We do want to indicate that does not mean staff is recommending that the sewer that is extended to be in the middle of the roadway per our typicals. This applicant is also requesting a waiver, and when it comes time to read this in, if you choose to grant the waiver, I have some revised wording based on the applicant's request, as they identified that their driveway is actually 56 feet wide, where normally a maximum of 28 feet is allowed, and then their driveway radiuses are also 50-foot radiuses instead of the normally required 25 to allow for the turning movements. That was a change from the last time you saw it. Now, I'm recommending that if the board wishes to discuss the site driveway layout, if that is too wide, they have that landscape island in the middle that's kind of pushing those wide radiuses. But staff's in support of that. There's not a significant pedestrian concern as the sidewalk is proposed on the southern side of the road.
And you're referring, if I may, Alec, to 3.2 and 3.3?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
The applicant has proposed a 15-foot wide trail easement along the property. Staff's recommending the board discuss with the applicant the possibility of coordinating with the abutting property owner, Hodges, to provide a full pedestrian access easement between Portsmouth Street and Old Loudon Road. And as always, we recommend the board and the applicant discuss implementing renewable energy equipment. And then the applicant had proposed a crosswalk from their site to the proposed sidewalk on the southern side of the road, and staff had requested they add a streetlight. It's since, we think it came to our attention that there might be a streetlight already on that utility pole. So we added a note that the applicant is to confirm that presence and operation. That's about all I have to add.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, welcome to the table. If you wouldn't mind giving us your names, and be sure to sign in.
We've done that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Matt Peterson, engineer with Keach Norsham Associate. Owner applicant here is Nick Palisano, and we're Bob Best as our attorney on the project. We did do a full presentation of the plan set last time. I'm sure most of you have seen it. I think Jeff will probably have the most comments from the board here, but what I'd like to do is touch upon some of the questions that were asked from the last one. The main one was the landscaping, in my opinion, where we had taken out the existing house. We had not shown the landscaping in that area to fill in the buffer that's there. So we've shown that in now in the bottom right-hand corner here. And then, as was brought up by Susan over here, is how we had kind of built everything up and took out the trees, but we really didn't do anything behind the units. So we had our landscape architect detail behind the units as well to add a little more green and stuff like that to the back of the units. Also, the sidewalk that was just discussed is proposed down and along the south side of the property, south side of Old Loudon Road. Again, I think that makes a lot of sense for the future. I know you just talked to the last one, but as you've heard from abutters and stuff, I travel this road a lot by bike and walking. You keep the internal loop. You don't have to do any crossing of the roads as you kind of make your loop on Old Loudon Road. So I would think that this side of the road makes the most amount of sense. It makes the most of sense on us because the commercial entities are on the other side of the road. So why wouldn't we put the sidewalks there? We could tie into them from that standpoint and have access to them, I guess, is how I would look at that. As far as the driveway entrance, that was kind of interesting in the last one as well because it was a question about the fire truck. And when we ran the fire truck out that right turn lane, we need that 50-foot radius to not cross the center line of Old Loudon Road there. So we're requesting that waiver. If we did remove the center island, it would reduce our waiver down to 48 feet instead of 56. But I think we believe the design plans in front of you make the most amount of sense for a development like this. We have wide lanes on both sides, you know, separating the traffic from each other as they're coming in and out. Obviously, we're an age-restricted development, so we felt that that's advantageous for our development that we're here. As far as the sewer goes, we'll put it in the roadway as requested by engineering. We are bringing it to our driveway entrance. We looked at going down the road to the center. The grade starts dropping away, and obviously the sewer's coming up, and we're just running out of cover for the pipe to extended future. So I think anybody that either developed the two parcels next to us would probably run the force main down Old Loudon to the manhole that we're putting at the entrance to our property. The separation waiver is just for the front detention pond that was sitting right in here. All the other ones have the 4 feet of separation. But if you take a look at the original grading plan from the existing conditions plan, and this is already a low depression right here in this area. So again, we've met the requirements of the AOT. We've got we're working on our AOT permit, but staff is willing to work with us on that, and we're asking for the one waiver for that in the front. So the 3 waivers were for the sewer, the separation, and the driveway there, driveway width. As far as conditional use, I think we talked about last time, that's for the points that go into the buffer. We met with conservation, they were good with that, and signed off on the design that was there. We don't really have a lot of other concerns. We've been working with engineering. Obviously, the sewer concern came up the other day, so we've got to continue to push that forward and stuff like that from our end. But I think we've been here for a few hearings and kind of gone through a lot of stuff, so I kind of open it up for comments or questions that you would have at this time. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that you put some trees back there. Your buildings are so big, I think it would be better to use the shade trees and not the crab apples.
Okay.
Just take advantage of that, and if, and I noticed that you've got like some shrubs around the base.
Yep.
Which are just kind of like pretty, that if you want to spend more money, get
Do
rid of
another
those
tree and
and
get
add
rid of
more
those?
trees.
Okay.
Yeah, because
All right.
that's going to make the biggest impact, I think, especially on that side, and then I'm sure people who live there will probably want to put like some perennials or something, and,
Okay.
but yeah, just
It'll be the
better to
same.
have the real shade trees in the back.
Okay.
But thank you for including that.
Anyone else? Yes.
So I do have a couple questions.
Mhm.
Probably not what you're expecting, though. On your site plan, you have a bunch of signs in and around the main entrance. The W11-2A, the crosswalk signs, they're no longer acceptable by MUTCD. They gotta be 11-2, so they don't have the little extra fake crosswalk markings. Also, stop signs should not be mounted on the same post as a keep right. Stop sign is supposed to be by itself. And I think it would be preferable to show the R4-7, which is just the symbol to keep right as opposed to the wording. It's just better understood by most people. I didn't, unless I missed it in the plan, I didn't see snow storage indications. Did I perhaps overlook that?
I hope so. Yeah, on our site plan, we typically will show those in areas of the stormwater up in this area here. But it doesn't look like it made it on the plan, so.
So you're showing snow storage in your stormwater areas?
We typically show it in the sediment basin at the entrance to them, yeah.
I don't think that's allowed, is it?
But I'll work with engineering to make sure that snow removal is in the correct places.
And believe it or not, I don't necessarily have a problem with your driveway entrance with the median in the middle. I do think it provides a little easier turns. I will still have the disagreement. I don't think this is the best side for this sidewalk. I know what you're saying about the inner loop, but the remainder of the developable property and lots is on the opposite side of the road from the commercial, so the same side as yours. So if those lots continue, we're gonna have to have more crosswalks down.
I'm not
Yeah, let me show
understanding
you.
where you're talking about.
So the entire section between Old Loudon Road and Loudon Road.
You only have these two houses right here, Jeff, right at the end.
Right, but if you continue up around, I'm just saying,
Oh,
if those
here?
houses get bought, the other stuff, commercial, is probably not gonna get bought out and
I see
changed.
what you're saying.
So what I'm saying is the available
Past
property
Portsmouth Street.
that could be bought is on the other side. So I'm just, we talk about entrance, access to the commercial lots, but those all have landscaping with a berm and a fence and just, I'm not gonna disagree with it, you know, if that's what staff and engineering's already chosen, but to me, it doesn't seem like the right place to put the sidewalk. I think you'd wanna put it on the side that has the residential and the, you know, whatnot uses as opposed to commercial, which are using Loudon Road for their sidewalk.
So I think that at Portsmouth Street, might be a possibility where you're crossing, and it is on the other side. That's just something I agree with you. At that point, when you should get to Portsmouth Street, it's an appropriate, it's a logical location to get to the other side where all of that vacant land is.
On this one here, we also, with the Chipotle and that, brought it up on the inside. So we're
At the
continuing it
very end, I
existing.
agree that piece that you have from your driveway heading back, it's the piece from the driveway
Yeah.
heading east that I don't necessarily agree is the
Gotcha.
correct location, but that's my personal choice based on my experience.
Part of that consideration was the wetlands that really abut almost right next to Old Loudon Road, so getting the sidewalk across that on the north side would be difficult. The conceptual concept was crossing at Portsmouth Street to get on the north.
I'll agree to disagree, but that's okay.
Anyone else? Could you just, for a moment, remind me, did you have to go to zoning?
We did go to zoning for length of the building and height of the buildings.
Right, okay, it was yours was the length of the building, okay. All right, anything else? Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Anyone else? Did you have anything to add? Okay. Members of the public, anyone want to, yes, please, come up, Mr. Sargent.
Back again. I'm
Well,
glad
be
you
sure to
brought-
sign in again, sir.
Sign
No,
in
he does
again?
not have to.
He doesn't have to? Oh, come on, I love doing that. It's a
Hey,
feeling.
you're making him, he's doing
It's a
it.
feeling of power.
Glad you brought up about planting larger native trees, and I was glad they put a mixture so it doesn't happen at the mall. They put all ash in, and we see what happened in there. And I'm glad they moved the entrance, because I was worried about that corner. There is still one issue, and that's the Phillips property that's behind them. They have not enough room to do a planting between the Phillips property and their back lawn. And the Phillips house is just a little strip of lawn toward Portsmouth Street. The lawn is in back. And I don't know whether it could be stipulated if the Phillipses agree, which I'm sure they would, that they put let's say, a pine staggered hedge back there, because they're gonna be looking right at those buildings. And they're
Excuse
the
me,
ones
sir.
that are gonna really take
When
them.
you say they, the developer?
If the developer would have to.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
That's what I mean.
Clarification,
As a
yeah.
stipulation, and of course, the Phillipses would have to agree, and the son would have to agree. But I'm sure they would want that right at the top of that ravine, that they wouldn't be looking at these big buildings right behind them in that, where before they were looking at forest areas and that. I think that's the only major question I have now in that. And I'm glad to see sidewalks going in, because it's getting pretty dangerous out there. Though Portsmouth Street, that is a very narrow road, very narrow right-of-way. Old Loudon Road was a state road, so it has very wide setbacks that you can use in that. And that's my only question.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions from the board, from Mr. Sargent? Yes.
Well, in response to that, is there ever a way where, that if there was that need to have that kind of buffer, vegetative buffer, that it could be done after, like, just, it could be added if it became like a real issue?
From my opinion is you could ask the
Yeah, like a-
developer to speak to the neighbors to see what they would want to
Yeah,
do.
but
I don't know if there's a
once it
requirement.
actually happened, it would be probably better to look at it to see like what that impact really was and how to best address it with a, evergreen screen. Clearly, it would be on the applicant's property.
Right.
But for the benefit, it's kind of hard to see in the plan. what's-
Yeah, I think we haven't typically handled it that way, and to the extent that they haven't shown up to express concern about it. I think that the board, if in the future they were to reach out and complain, we could try to set up a meeting of the minds to see if they can work through it. We've done that in the past, but I wouldn't want to put a vague condition on behalf of
Yeah, because you'd
a
really.
party
the
that hasn't shown up to the hearing.
Right, and when the elevation could be part of the issue too, like if it's a higher elevation,
Yeah.
it could be a lower
Yeah.
screen because they're up above the roof line anyway. I mean, I can't tell from the pictures, but.
It's kind of hard to tell, but it looks as if from the Phillips house sets up somewhat, and their first floor is up in that, so they would be looking sort of down, and then that ravine drops off fairly quickly there, and it would be at the top. And on the other side, of course, those buildings are very high, so, they would certainly show, they weren't, like a one-story building or something like that. They had to get a variance to build because they were above the allowed height.
And length, yeah. I believe, and the length of the building, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much. I'll just make a question to the applicants. Is that something you'd be willing to do, is to speak to the Phillips, if you haven't already?
So I would just say to the board, that's not one I saw when I talked to him earlier tonight when I came here. So just looking at what, again, going down on Portsmouth Street the many times that I have, this house sits closer to Portsmouth Street. It's about 150 feet to our property, and then we've left a 15 to 30-foot buffer on our property, and then the buildings are about another 50 feet. I don't disagree. I don't want to go against what he's saying, but our wetland, if you look up in the corner here, the brook he's talking about, and I just looked at the city GIS while I was sitting before the meeting, this wetland continues and goes up like this. So I definitely wouldn't put anything on the backside of that slope for them. Like Heather said, it would have to be on our property. And it would just be, you know, 5 deciduous trees or something in this area if that's the concern of the board and stuff. But I just don't see, if you look at the Google Maps of the tree growth in that area, it's a pretty established forest in that area. Again, just so you know, this is the cell tower right here. So this is popping out above the trees. So they're seeing this no matter what, and that's not on my property. So we work with everybody. We're not trying to be a bad neighbor. You know, if she comes out to you guys, I think Heather made the great point that if she had a problem during it, these guys, Nick and Jim, would come and, they'd have a conversation.
Definitely would work it out, I think. But I do want to pick up on Heather's comment that neighbor didn't come here to express those concerns themselves after the hearings, and we're sort of imagining that they've got concerns that need to be addressed, but we're just kind of guessing, right?
Excuse me, Mr. Sargent, please, I'll let you up in a second. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm not suggesting that it be a conditional use. I think
Thank you.
Matt presented it well as being a good neighbor and having the conversation, and we'll go from there. So
Yeah,
thank you very
definitely
much.
we are. It's these guys,
Yeah.
for sure.
I have nothing else to ask.
I'll just note that when they first came, I think that was one of my initial questions, was what's the grade difference, and will this be seen from Portsmouth Street? So we did have those conversations, and we
Yeah.
looked at it from a staff perspective.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Sargent, you had a question?
Yes.
Please come forward. I'm going to let these gentlemen go.
Mrs. Phillips is not well, and her son would have to fly in for a meeting and that, so that's why they can't be here. And I know them fairly well.
Sure.
I thought I'd bring it up, and being landscape designer, don't look at my house, but I thought I would bring it up to see if something couldn't be done, so that her view from her place wouldn't be this huge, long building. Even if the elevation's different, you're still gonna see the roofs and those significant portion. And I thought the easiest thing would be just to stagger some white pines at the top of the bluff would eliminate that problem. It wouldn't be terribly expensive.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Well, if there are no other members of the audience, members of the public, we'll close the public hearing and have discussion amongst the board. Any thoughts, concerns? All right, the silence is deafening. All right, so let's take a look at it's the end of the public hearing. What do we have to do?
Do you have the report open in front of you?
Yes. Well, that's this.
Yes.
Let me go back to the,
All of the motions and
all the
recommendations.
motions are in there.
Yep.
That's
are,
right. I read these all the time.
Yeah. Item 6.
I think I've captured a few alterations, so if we go slow, I'll interject when.
Okay, let's go to the recommendations, item 6. 6.1, staff recommends to the board discuss and determine the findings of fact, which I believe we've done, which may include information provided in staff reports, the applicant's submission materials, testimony provided during the public hearing, and/or other documents, yada, yada, yada. Anything to add from staff on that?
What it's asking you to do is basically to determine, yes, we find those to be
Okay.
the findings of fact. It's basically a statement from you.
Do we
For the
vote on
record.
these individually?
Once you get to 6.2, yes.
Okay.
But findings of fact, you can just discuss.
Finding of
and agree.
facts, everyone comfortable with the findings of fact? All right, 6.2, grant architectural design review approval of the building. I'd accept a motion to do that as submitted. Anything to change on that, Ally?
Yeah, do you mind, because there were architectural conditions, do you mind reading the
Oh, no,
section
the
so
condition
that's
that lighting be provided by the solid waste receptacles, pickleball court, and the pool areas.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. 6.3, grant the following waivers to the site plan regulations using the criteria of RSA 674:44, 3E2 as guidance. Specific circumstances relative to the site plan or conditions of the land in such site place indicate that waiver will properly be carried out. The spirit and intent of the regulations under section 22.07, stormwater recharge to allow 3 feet of separation between the bottom of the infiltration system and groundwater for infiltration pond number 1, where normally 4 feet is required. And section 18.10, driveway widths to allow,
I have revised language on that. if
oh,
you want me
okay,
to-
on the driveway?
Based on the applicant's request.
Okay.
Section 18.10, driveway widths, to allow a maximum driveway width of 56 feet, where normally 28 feet is required, and to also allow driveway radii at the public street of 50 feet, where normally a maximum of 25 feet is allowed to accommodate the turning motion required for a fire truck access into the site.
Okay, motion to accept the points in 6.3.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 6.4, grant the following waivers to the subdivision regulations utilizing the criteria from RSA 674:36(2) and 2.
Hold
Oh.
on. That says subdivision regulations. So you need the language above, I'm not sure how it got switched, but the language above is the same language that applies to the language below. You might just want to add section 2502 to what you previously read.
The subdivisions are a different RSA, which is why they're broken out.
Do they have a subdivision?
This is a waiver to the subdivision. The site plans reference a subdivision for the extension of the sanitary sewer.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. I have never encountered that before. All right, we'll proceed, I apologize.
How many doing so far?
Great,
Okay, thanks.
5 stars.
Indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations and based on the fact that no new development is proposed under section 25.02. Is this language
Correct.
current? Municipal sanitary sewers to not require the sanitary sewer extension to extend to the middle of the parcel frontage on Old Loudon Road. Accept a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, 6.5, grant the conditional use permit in accordance with section 28.4.3D of the zoning ordinance to allow for 4 disturbances to the 50-foot wetland buffer for the construction of 2 walls and 2 drainage outlets with a condition that 1 stone riprap at both drainage outlets extend to the base of the slopes to protect against erosion. Motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A little enthusiasm, please. All right, item 6.6. Grant, is this correct? You want to add language to 6.6?
Potentially, there were comments from other board members. If I can read them, if you guys want to include
Sure.
them as a precedent condition 8. Proposed crabapple trees placed behind the buildings are to be replaced with shade trees. And condition 9, the applicant to work with engineering to revise street signage at entrance to be compliant with the current MUTCD recommendations. Either of you, if that fits your concern or.
Yes, it does, thank you.
Okay. And with the precedent condition to be fulfilled within 1 year and prior to the sign-off by the clerk and chair of the planning board, and issuance of any building permits or the commencement of site construction unless otherwise specified. All right, and then we have all
Can I-
these, or
can
just
I-
that?
Can I just have you add one more thing? Can you, and the notes about the stakes, the planting stakes?
Oh, stakes within 1 year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that planting stakes will be removed.
If they should be removed after the first growing season.
Planting stakes will be removed after the first planting season.
Growing season.
Planting seasons.
That's the previous applicant, I
Yeah.
think.
Typically, Rich will just say 1 through 8, and then subsequents 1 and 2,
Okay.
just to note them.
I don't have to read them all, right?
No, that's what I'm saying, he'll say
Yeah.
1 through 8,
Okay.
and subsequents 1 and 2.
All right.
We have 9 with
Or
the.
one
Yeah,
through
1
9.
through 9. This includes subsequent conditions 1 through 9, and B, 1 through 3.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's the end of my page. All right, thank you all very much.
Send the chairman back in.
Please send the chairman back in.
Not that you did do a great job, Earl, but I know he needs to come back.
Preston to service. That's what we do here.
Thank you for keeping order.
Hmm?
Thank you for keeping order.
Oh, you gotta keep the order. It's what the nuns taught me at St. Michael's Elementary School.
Yeah, that was usually at the end
Not
of
as
the
easy as
rule.
it looks, is it?
Can you pass those down?
Good job, Earl. Thank you.
You weren't supposed to be listening.
No, I wasn't.
What were we doing there?
Thank you very much.
You already went on record saying you were gonna. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Just other business.
Thank you, Council Pierce. Let's move on. Item 8 on our agenda is council referral regarding request to discontinue a portion of Stickney Avenue right-of-way. Can we get an update on that?
Sure, so I'm gonna, I'm not sure, there's supposed to be an applicant here, but doesn't appear to be, so I will.
Push it to next month. They can't bother to be here. Push it.
So Stickney Ave, you may recall, before they were able to come for their site plan, they had to get the Stickney Ave right-of-way, existing right-of-way removed that had run through the frontage of their property. So council took an action to remove that right-of-way. Unfortunately, it didn't have the complete there were 2 plans, and the wrong plan was included in the paperwork. So council, the plan that was included only included the right-of-way across the frontage of their property, and not the right-of-way across the entire state property all the way to the end to where the U-Haul station is. So their access to their property is on that state property. So in order to get the full access that they need and have the city's right-of-way removed, there needs to be an updated council motion to remove that part of the right-of-way. So I'm just gonna sort of show you what I'm talking about with this plan. And I also passed out, oh my gosh, it's not doing this in a way that I am. Is this it? Yes, this is it. So it's oh, sorry, Pete. Pete, you must keep getting hit in the back of the head with this. It's this area here, so right now, the plan that council took action on stops here. So this whole area is still city right-of-way. So they're asking to have this entire thing discontinued, this of course being their access just over the property line. So what I passed out to you, as part of their approval, what they did was they gave the city an easement along this frontage and an easement along their frontage for the Merrimack River Greenway Trail. So some staff had asked if they could work with the state to get us an easement along this area to continue. So right now we have an easement all the way up to the edge of their property. And so the question was, can they work with the state to get us the easement the rest of the length of their property? And all parties involved seem to be amenable to that. The state's been working very well with everyone. Everybody's on good terms and working well together. So that's what I handed out to you, and I do have language written for the recommendation to council, which basically says that they will, subject to them working with the state to get an easement on that piece of the property, that we recommend that city council release the right-of-way.
So you're just looking for a recommendation?
Yes, so council takes action and the board makes the recommendation.
I think it seems reasonable.
Yeah, it does seem reasonable, yep. So what do you need from us? Just a request that city council, do you want to base it on John Cronin's message here, or the way he wrote it?
So I wrote some language there, I think is, let me just transition back over here.
Recommendation to council.
I didn't see that, where's that? Oh. Revised recommendation to council, recommend council approve the release of the right-of-way subject to 11 Stickney Ave subject, the right-of-way subject to 11 Stickney Ave property owner securing a 5-foot easement with the state along the frontage of their lot in the location indicated on the plan presented by staff during the 8/16/23 meeting for the purpose of potentially expanding an existing sidewalk to the future to accommodate the Merrimack River Greenway Trail. So I'm confused. So they've released already the section to the parking lot, to the end of the parking lot, right? Or to the beginning of their entranceway.
They've released it to the edge of their property line.
Right. But are we making it contingent on them, we'll release it if we get a release for the, we don't want to hamstring the Merrimack River Greenway Trail if this doesn't go through from the state side, right? We don't want a gap in that trail.
Right. So that's what that's supposed to
So
cover.
that's,
So this is supposed to
that'll cover that.
Correct.
So subject to the fact that the state do their piece.
This is all involved with the reconfiguration 93 and exit
Yes.
14.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good with that, Heather?
Yes.
The reading of it in, let's, can we make a motion and a second for that? Yes.
I have to
I
be
just,
a bit-
before we do that, so, is it, yeah, okay, go ahead.
I have to be a bit of a jerk.
Yeah,
The question is, does Jim Kennedy review this language?
Yes.
And Jim Kennedy's
Well,
approved them?
we're just making a recommendation.
Right,
So
right, but I
council
wa-
is what is getting reviewed by Jim.
I understand that, but
Yep.
I want to know if what we're being asked to recommend, the city lawyer has looked at.
That language specifically, no.
should we recommend that Attorney Kennedy look at it prior to going to city council?
I move we recommend.
I assure you
They will look
that
at it
the
before it gets to that
applicant
point?
prefers that you make your recommendation and not hold it up for another month. I spoke with John Cronin before this meeting to make sure he was okay with.
I'm
Yeah,
comfortable with making the recommendation that the staff, i.e. city solicitor, look at the language prior to approval. We're recommending approval is what I
Yeah,
would say.
we're recommending approval.
Contingent upon
the city
review.
solicitor
Well, I think
reviewing.
you- I think
Yeah,
you
I'm
have
fine
to
with
be
that.
very specific, that the city solicitor has to
Yep.
look at the language and approve it before it goes to city council.
Okay, we all in agreement? Okay, so there's a motion on the table to make the recommendation with the language outlined, provided the city solicitor's office reviews, and before sending to council. All right?
Good to me.
I'll make that motion. Someone like the second? Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. What's next, Heather?
I'm attempting to sign in so that I can I have this document on my.
So again, for the record, items 11 and 12 have been postponed to the September meeting. If you're here for those, sorry, we announced it at the beginning of the meeting.
So the number 10.
You actually need a motion for those, so you can make that
Yeah,
motion while
so
I'm
let's
bringing
make
this
that 11 and 12 together. Can we do them?
So moved.
Heather,
Second.
can I do them together?
One says contingent,
One
No,
says
they're both postponed.
both been postponed. So, a
September
motion to postpone 11 and 12 to the September 20th, 2023 meeting. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And Heather, you said you're attempting to do something?
Yeah, so I handed out this
For the statutory?
single sheet. Since it was a relatively short meeting, I thought I could go over this with you. It's kind of an update or I guess a summary, little education session about statutory deadlines and what they mean.
And I think we've reviewed this before,
You
but
sent
it's
the
been
email.
a few years. I know
Well,
thought
I
Jim
know
Kennedy
you've had
came in.
various sessions with Jim
Yeah,
Kennedy
yeah.
about procedures.
Yeah, and
This
I-
is just, I took out excerpts from the RSAs to identify, to let you know what these statutory deadlines are. I'm actually, I think I'm just gonna go over them with you. The reason we're doing this is so that you all are aware that there are statutory deadlines and there are ways that we have to comply with them or abide by them. My email's saying all kind of crazy things. So for determination of completeness, when we receive an application, that we have 30 days to determine it complete or let them know that it's not complete so that they can give us the information so that it can be determined complete. As you noted here, complete means that you have enough information to review, to consider the application and to make a decision. So for instance, sometimes if we don't have stormwater calculations, that can dramatically change the layout of a plan. Those are times when staff is saying, we don't recommend this be determined complete, and things are being postponed. It's why you have a few things that are postponed on your agenda tonight and that have not been determined complete. If the application is determined complete, then we move on to our board actions. You have 65 days for an application to act on that application, unless the applicant agrees to a waiver of those 65 days. You have 65 days to consider it, to ask questions, to request things from them. If you haven't gotten all the information that you feel that you need, you request that the applicant, or agree with the applicant to an extension. They have to be in agreement with that extension. If it's a development of regional impact, you have 95 days. So if at the end of the 65 or the 95 days, you're at a point where you don't feel you have enough information, you can deny the application and state the basis, which is we don't have enough information. If the applicant disagrees and no decision is made after 65 or 95 days, they can request, as it says here in the bottom, if the board if the board undergoes no action, then they can request that City Council approve the application, basically, essentially. If City Council doesn't approve the application, they have 30 days from that point to request Superior Court to approve the application. So at each step, it's a communication with the applicant about how much information we need, how much they're willing to provide. In most situations, we actually approve applications. So for minor site plans, on the night, you'll recall, when they're determined complete, the public hearing happens that night. In most cases, they are, an action is taken for a minor site plan or a minor subdivision the night that it's determined complete. So you're not even using your 65 days. You're not even using your 35 days. For most major site plan applications, the determination of completeness is 1 month, and then we're using 30 days, 1 month, till the major site, till the public hearing rather, where the action is taken. So in like 95% of the cases, you only even ever get to the 30 days or 35 days or however long it is to the public hearing.
So I don't want to belabor the point, but I don't know that we care. I don't want to speak for everybody. I don't know that we care as much about what the differences are as far as you have this much time for this much time for this much time for this, as much as you telling us in the application process in the report, maybe make it, and now that we've put in the findings of fact, right there at the beginning, say, you know, we're 58 days into this, and you either make a decision tonight, the applicant needs to agree to a postponement, and it's the job of the chair to then say, look, we don't have enough information to do this. If you want us to make a decision, we'll put it to a vote. But I'd like to request that we get a traffic study, a feasibility study, whatever study. Do you agree? Yes or no? Yes, boom. And then the board doesn't need to, we don't need all the details on what the process is and all the different steps that need to get done. We just need to know that when we come once a month, we either are on track or we're behind the 8 ball, or we need to have a date that says, okay, this is the last meeting that you're going to be in compliance. So we're either going to need to make a decision, or we're going to need you to agree as the applicant that we're going to postpone it, or, you know, we'll put it to a vote.
And that's all I wanted to make sure that the board was aware.
Yeah.
I can only think of a handful of cases where we even went to 65 days, and that was because we were down like 3 engineering staff
Yeah.
and 1 planning staff.
And it will happen, and it
So-
will, you know, as things get
In
complex
the event
and.
that you get to the 65 days
Yeah.
or the 95 days, and the applicant does not want to continue,
Right.
we recently came across a situation where I don't think there was awareness that the applicant needs to agree to this.
Yeah.
Or there's a legal,
Yeah.
you know, issue involved.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do you all keep with each project actually a timeline? So do you
Yeah,
have?
absolutely.
Do you have
Every
a
single
timeline
project.
that it was submitted here, this is it?
Absolutely.
So I think Rich's suggestion is a good one, that on
Yeah.
all these projects, particularly because there's some complicated ones coming forward, that we have, when that's on the agenda, where we are on the timeline.
And one question that came up after this point was brought up, if we say, hey, we're at day 58, we want to get some additional information on this that wasn't provided in the plans, do you agree to postpone it to this particular meeting? Does the clock stop at that point, or does it go out to 65 days and just say, okay?
Well, it's extended. So
It's
if they
extended.
agree to a 30-day extension, then
30 days
you're
from
good
there,
for
then it
another 30
becomes
days.
95
If you
days.
get to the
and then it
next 30
becomes 100.
days,
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And if they
Council
don't
Pierce.
agree,
Yeah, if
then
they don't agree, and that's the question, if you say, we want to do this, and they say, well, we don't want to do that, we've provided everything we're going to provide, okay, we'll take it to a vote, and we'll vote on it with the information that we've got, and if it's approved, fine, if it's denied based on the fact that we either didn't have the information or using our finding of facts to say, we don't agree with this waiver, we don't agree with this conditional use permit, or we don't want to approve it for this particular reason. And again, our purview is not, I don't like it, or, you know, I don't want to approve it, so. Council Pierce.
Thank you, and thank you for this, Heather. When I read this, what struck me is, as planning board members, we ought to put that question arrow in our quiver, is where are we on the clock?
Yeah.
On this one?
if we get to like the 3rd month. and
Yeah,
we've
if
seen
we're
this
still
3 times in
talking
a
about
month.
something after a few months to ask the question.
Well, I'm sitting there thinking, though, if Heather has it there, if they have it on, you know, on our 6A or whatever, we're gonna know. I mean, we had that project years ago, that chicken project.
The chicken plant, yeah, that was the one that came to
If you
mind.
think about it,
I mean,
if we've had a
remember that,
completeness
Suzanne?
in one meeting, and the next meeting we're at public hearing, that's it.
Yeah.
We already know. I
Yeah.
mean, we don't necessarily need a separate.
Right.
It's whether they agree to the 30 days after that.
No,
We've
no,
had
that's
them in the
incorrect.
past,
I just
though.
want to correct,
You just said if we have the completeness the first month.
Yep.
They have 30 days as the public hearing.
right, but you do have 65 days.
So there is a
what you're
potential
saying,
for another meeting. I thought.
Correct.
From the day they submitted to the day they
Nope.
got into completeness was a
The-
30-day window.
60
no,
days,
the day,
65.
you have 30 days, they submit it, you have
Correct.
30 days to completeness, and then you have 65 more to make a motion.
meetings
So
after
you
that
have, you have 3 months, and that's if the determination of completeness happens in the first month. So when you get something for determination of completeness for every single application, once you determine it complete, you have 2 months, essentially, from that point, unless it's a development of regional impact, and then you have 3. So that first 30 days does not count towards your 65 days.
Yeah, and sometimes, again, we
So,
don't see those
like I said,
for-
we almost never get to the 3rd month. I mean, I think the Rossios was one situation, and because there
Couple
were
times.
issues with all of the engineering that had to be addressed, and they knew that. And then the charitable gaming project. So those are the only 2 I can
The
think
chicken,
of.
the chicken plant was one,
Well,
and
I'm
then
thinking
CVS up
the-
on the Heights was one too, but.
The one that you mentioned tonight, Railroad, didn't that end up going out?
Rail
I
yard.
thought that went, Rail Yard, I thought went
The
out.
rail yard?
Probably not.
No,
I don't
because it
recall
didn't have any waivers or anything, it was shockingly quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, remember, a lot of times determination of completeness comes after zoning, comes after demolition permits, if there's demolition permits and all that type of stuff.
Always drives me crazy.
You don't
that
see any of
zoning-
that before, and then it comes complete at that point. Once DHS has looked at it, all the other things that have to happen prior to that have
So
already.
I think, I
had
just
time to-
recalled the 150 Fisherville, the condominium
Yeah, I was gonna
development.
say, yeah.
That one went to the 3rd month, but it didn't go past the 3rd month. He was up in arms that it went to the 3rd month, but it didn't, that was within the statutory timeframe that you have.
David? You have a
I think
question?
you answered it, but I was referring to when we sort of got in that gum with the casino thing. We got
Yeah,
pushed up
same
against,
type of
pushed
thing.
up against that wall.
Yeah.
Was that a real life example of what you were talking about?
Well, I wanted you to be aware of this information so that if those situations arise, that you're cognizant of those deadlines.
very helpful.
And the need to have the applicant on the same page with what you're doing.
And again, I'll drive that from that perspective, but I do want to see it on there to say, okay, we're here. This is the 11th hour, so we're going to either make a decision or we're going to put it to the vote. If you want to.
Which is what we did with the casino
Which is
thing,
what we did
right?
with the casino, yeah.
I mean, in 95% of the situations, the applicant wants to give you what you need because.
To make a positive, yeah.
Well, no, because
They want to get going.
you have the card in your pocket that if they don't give you the information, it can be denied.
Yeah.
You have a very valid reason to deny an application if you don't have the information or they haven't addressed a problem. And most of the issues we bring up have to do with public
And
health,
again,
safety, and welfare.
You hear it, the applicants we heard tonight, we'll work with the staff to do this, we'll work with staff to do that. I mean,
And this kind of brings to a point that I mentioned to you a couple of months ago about the quality of the plans we've been seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think some of these applicants are trying to turn around this stuff so fast, and it puts so much more pressure on engineering when the plans are poor.
Yeah.
And there's typos, and there's this, and
So that's a good question. So a plan comes in, a plan set comes in, comprehensive development plan comes in for a large project. The engineering is all over the place. The plans aren't complete. They don't have this, they don't have this, they don't have that. Does engineering stop that process as long as they need to get the information
Well,
before determination of completeness is done?
When we're looking at the application, we go to engineering and say, what are you okay with? So we try to work with them on every application to make sure that they have
But they
information.
see the plans before the determination of completeness
Oh,
is done.
absolutely. They're
So
looking at it to see.
If there's problems, then they're identifying the problems, they're working with the
that's the
applicant,
goal.
and then,
Yes.
and then the determination of completeness can be done. So it's not being done and then given to engineering say, holy hell,
Yeah.
this is terrible, I can't do this.
It's been a sort of a challenge for us,
It has.
quite
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
to, people want to get their projects moving. But if we're going to be fair, then we may end up not determining more applications complete,
Well,
not accepting them,
and
not
I'll be honest,
recommending
Heather, I think
acceptance.
that, and Jeff brings up a good point, but we did the same thing with the signs, and we set the message out to the community and said, we're not gonna tolerate this type of work with the sign pieces. We want this to be done in this fashion, this is the way we wanna do it, and if we need to do that with applications, then
Yep.
we need to start putting people on notice when they come in with a plan set that's not right,
Right.
to say, we'll let this get through and we'll do a little extra work for you,
Well,
but
I
we don't
think-
need you guys engineering the plans for these people either.
I think one of the questions, though, is when we do have traffic studies and water studies,
Yeah.
and those need to be reviewed by a third-party consultant and reviewed by staff.
Yeah.
So far, we have on occasion got the traffic scoped before the submission and had that, by their application submission. But 9 times out of 10, we try to get those going as soon as we can, but it's often that we don't get that in and get the review by the determination of completeness. We just say, this has to be submitted.
Yep,
So I
okay.
think that's something we can maybe reevaluate our
here's a
policy
question.
on that.
Do we
the
actually have a
process.
submission checklist that they're
Oh, yeah.
required to physically submit? Because, how many times do I see, you need to provide sewer profiles, you need to provide drainage profiles in engineering's comments? Well, if that's on the checklist, why are we accepting these as complete? That information is not there.
Yep.
Push it back on them.
Yep.
So that engineering's not making the same comments over and over. We've had some applications where they change the building, and we get the next application, I won't say any names, and the building is still labeled at a different number of stories or a different square footage on the new plans, and like, oh, yeah, we'll fix that. Well, it should have been fixed as part of the submission.
Yeah.
So,
I think this is really bringing up a lot of issues that are a lot of things that we've known about our process that we could maybe look at more closely.
I'm not trying to say the process is wrong. I think we just need to maybe better adhere to the process that's there and hold them more accountable rather than just, you know,
I agree.
I want to work with them and get it approved, but I also want to make it less work for engineering.
Yes, our policy has been, like, what we've been trying to make happen is we review the plan, if we're missing information, because I've looked at past staff reports, and they usually will say, we need this, this, and this, and if you get it to us by this date, you can be on the agenda. And I'm not sure how they did that. I mean, that's like flipping plans super fast, and I think there was engineering and planning staff were not happy with each other about that. So, you know, I think we need to work together to sort of say, to really look at our standards and not accept it as complete. So maybe it takes 2 months because they're used to sort of just putting it in,
I mean,
just to get
again,
it in.
it's a
Because
happy.
you shouldn't be their QA, QC.
That's
part.
exactly the.
And that's what's happening, and I'm,
exactly what's happening.
as an engineer, if I was to submit to New Hampshire DOT, they don't want to be my QC. They've made it very clear to consultants, we no longer want to be your QC, you do it. If we start finding a lot of these, you're not gonna get work. Or, we can't say it to them, but, I mean, it's gonna take more time or whatever. And I think the city, as much as we want development, and we're a very pro-development city, it needs to be responsible development, it needs to be done right, and the engineers should be doing the work so that our staff is
Yeah, I mean,
reviewing, not.
one of the things that we can do, that we should probably, planning and engineering, do is sit down together and say, what are the things that we're okay with, and what are the things we're not okay with? Because, for instance, our checklist has, you know, correct a butter information on it, or has a north arrow. So somewhere, there's a line where we're okay, we understand these are technical details that you're gonna provide versus.
What's required to make another step in the decision process, because if you don't have sewer profiles, there might be another step to the process you can't review. If you don't have drainage, how can you determine if their stormwater design is correct? But like you say, if the abutters are wrong, a north arrow is missing, or it's turned incorrectly, or an abutter, or like a lot of times we see, they don't have the right property addresses for the new building. That's probably because we have to help them develop it. I get those. It's the pieces that, the sight lines.
All right,
I mean,
I think we got it.
Yeah.
We got it.
So.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
Sure.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I do find it very difficult at times to make a decision and vote.
Yeah.
Because we're getting sometimes information, literally new information, the afternoon before we vote that night.
That's tough.
And if I'm out in meetings, I might get home at 5 o'clock. And it's, oh my God, I gotta quickly get down there, so it's not time to really. So I'm wondering if there's any way the city can say to these folks, the information has to be in here by this date, so it gives us time. And if not, it's not gonna be submitted to the board.
Yeah.
And then it may mean at
again,
that point, that, okay, guess what? We're running up against a timeline, we're gonna vote, we're gonna turn you down.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the information. But I find it really, I do find it very frustrating as sitting here as a member who's making a decision that impacts people in the city, that I'm getting information late and I'm expected to read it and understand it. And like tonight, I hate to say it, getting that thing that we're voting on to recommend to the mayor, we should have had copies for everybody. Because I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not gonna vote for this, he's reading it, I'm trying to process what he's reading. And we should have had everybody at a copy and maybe been able to have it at the beginning. I just think we need, as a board, better preparation and more preparation. I would like to request at some point we have Jim Kennedy come in, because there was a vote recently that made me very uncomfortable. And I will say, I was spending my time doing this, trying to research RSAs while we were talking and listening to what was going on. And I did not feel prepared to make a good decision because I didn't know what the consequences were across the board. And so I think having this bigger discussion would be really great to have with Jim. Okay, if there's something that goes to 3 months and we turn it down, what happens? Can the applicant come back? Can they not come back? Can they get their act together 3 months from it? You know, what's the recourse? I don't want to make a decision where the city's going to get sued. So, I mean, so from a bigger perspective, not specific projects, it would just be kind of great to know what the consequences are in these situations.
Yep, good point.
So I do think that was an attempt here to sort of start that conversation. But I will answer your question, because after 3 months or 2 or however, whatever it is, if you deny the application based on not having enough information, you're denying it, in the statute, it says you're denying without prejudice. So they can literally submit the next day for the same application for the next month.
Okay.
But I can
We got
ask
it,
Jim Kennedy.
and maybe Jim Kennedy could come
I
have,
still think
you
it'd
know,
be good to have him in.
have him come in for a half hour and just give
Yeah.
us a little primer on a couple things.
So, and I also say that
Yeah.
we always try to make the applicants submit at the deadline for the meeting. But we can't prevent them from coming, we have no ability to prevent the Rossios from showing up, or whoever, at a meeting and
Passing
saying,
stuff out
I
at a
have a
meeting."
completely new plan.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
it's up to we can't prevent that.
And
It's
and
up,
it's
they're
up to the
allowed to
board.
do that.
It's up to the board to say, look,
Exactly.
staff
The
needs
board
to
has-
review this, engineering needs to
Exactly.
review
Which
this.
we
This
have
is,
done and
and
pushed
we
a
have,
couple
and we
times.
have pushed it back.
I mean, we literally, the night of the meeting, are getting things, like today, you know, that conversation about the right-of-way happened this evening, this afternoon.
Okay.
So
What
we're,
happens, if I may, what happens to the clock?
Yeah, exactly,
that
that's what I don't
it starts
understand.
over again. You've denied the application, when they resubmit,
but-
it's.
No,
The
I
clock-
mean, just example, you
So
just
just
gave
say
the
you-
Palacios, they come in at the last minute with something, and, you know,
We
If-
say
if
we
an-
don't have enough information
An
and we need to
applicant
delay.
comes in,
They,
and that.
they then need to say, they then need to agree to an extension. You say, we wanna
Gotcha.
continue this till next month. Do you agree?
And
And if they
Assuming
say
we're-
no,
Assuming we're at the
last,
65 or
yeah.
95. If
Right.
we're only at the first meeting
Well,
and they
no,
try and do
but-
it.
Well,
we
no,
can
even
just say-
then, you
Yeah.
want to extend it. I mean, even if you're only at 30 days.
Right, but we
and
don't, do we need their approval? We
No.
have
Yes,
65?
well, you
Not
don't need it, but you might as well get it, because
no,
it
no,
resets the clock again.
no, hold on.
Yes,
If after 30 days, it's determined complete and you're at the first public hearing,
yeah,
you have the right to say, we're gonna continue this till next month,
without any harm,
without any agreement from the applicant.
right.
And it does not reset the clock if they agree to that.
But-
Because
oh,
that's
okay.
that's within the 65 days. If at 65 days, they show up at the meeting and say, I
That's
want you to
different,
vote on this, and I'm not agreeing to an extension, you deny the application. I mean,
Okay.
you got a brand-new application, nobody's reviewed it, we have no idea what it is. At that point, you deny the application,
Or they agree to extend it,
correct?
yep. Okay, Jeff, you had one more thing, and then we're gonna
No,
wrap
but
up.
isn't there one more on the agenda tonight, the
Yes, there
ADR?
are 2 more
member?
things on the agenda.
What is,
no, I'm
There's a new
ADR,
member
the
appointed
ADR member.
ADR.
That's why you, yeah.
oh, where's that?
Number 10.
Oh, I missed it.
So we were just in town.
Architectural Design Review Committee Member Appointment. Ah, does my heart good to see that.
It's an architect, big surprise.
We have to vote on that, so we've got, Amanda's gonna be put in as a alternate on Architectural Design Review, and Doug Proctor is gonna be put in as a permanent member of Architectural Design Review, is that right? So we have to recommend that and
You have to make a motion.
we have to make a motion, so I'm gonna make a motion that Amanda be seated as an alternate and Doug Proctor be seated as a permanent member of Architectural Design Review.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. What's left? Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Any other business that legally comes before the board tonight? Nope. If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motions are made and roundly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We are adjourned. We'll see you in September.